not a position that either team expected to be in coming into this one, but there's still a title on the line. My name is Mark. Let's talk rugby. As I said, I don't think either team expected really what happened to them last week, and coming into this game in very different mindsets. France, it looked like it was also possession for them to that, eventual Grand Slam. Not going to be the case anymore. England, started really well in the tournament and just have fallen off a cliff now, and potentially could end up with the wooden spoon at the end of Saturday night. So, yeah, definitely not where they expected themselves to be. This one, France versus England, on Saturday, the 14th of March, 2026. It's an 8:10 p.m. kickoff. That's Ireland and UK time, so check your local listings to make sure you don't miss anything. It's in the Stade de France in Paris. Last year, it was England 26, France 25, and the year before, 2024, France 33, England 31, both close games. The odds for this one, France 9-2 on favourites, England 5-1, and 40-1 the draw. So, England 5-1, that's pretty generous odds, honestly. You certainly wouldn't have expected that at the start of the tournament, that England would go into this game as 5-1 underdogs. Certainly would have expected them to be underdogs, maybe like 2-1, something like that. But yeah, obviously the bookmakers feel like France aren't going to slip up 2 weeks in a row, and that England are going to slip up 4 weeks on the trot, or 4 rounds on the trot, should I say. So let's have a look at the teams, and then we'll come back and talk about the changes, etc. from there. So let me pull up the French team first. So France, front row is Gros, Marchand and Al-Daheri. Second row, Flamand and Miafu. Back row is Kroos, Mathieu and Olivon. Halfbacks, Dupont and Jalibert. Left wing, Biel Biarri. The centres, Mofana and Baresi. Right wing, Atasogbe, and the fullback is Ramos. On the bench then, we got Maubaka, Neti and Bamba as your front row cover. Then we have Aradou covering the second row. Got Guiar and Brennan for the back row. And then Serine and Gaeton as the back replacement. So 6-2 split for France. Okay, so let's talk about the changes that they've made. Some of them have been, most of them I think have been enforced. First of all, Flamand and Miafu into the second row because of injury and changes that have been made, suspension, etc. You got Mathieu in for Jagu, who is suspended for eye gouging. Olivon has switched to 8 because Jalonche is injured, and obviously because he's switched to the back row, you get he's switched from the second row as well. Then we got Barassi coming into the centres for Deporter, who's out injured. And then on the bench, you got Joshua Brennan coming onto the bench for them. So let's talk about, the France team overall. So first of all, front row, Gros, Marchand and Al-Daheri, they went pretty well against that Italy scrum. Got somewhat parity for France, but couldn't really, be dominant against a Scotland team who kind of struggled a little bit. Ray brought in instead of Xander Ferguson because of the struggles that he's been having. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they go in this one, because England's scrum has been pretty good, and they showed that against Italy as well. That Italy certainly the better of the two scrums, but England won a few penalties themselves, and maybe a couple of tricks winning them that as well. But you've got, second row there, Flamand and Miafu. So you've got like the athleticism of Flamand beside the absolute out and out power of Miafu. Miafu, just one of those specimens that, given the ball close to the line, you're going to, the only chance really you have is, almost like kamikaze, put yourself underneath him and hold them up, because you're probably not going to stop them getting over the line. So you want to get under there and try and hold the ball up instead. Then back row, Crow, Matthew and Olivon. So not the usual one that we're used to seeing. It's normally Crow, Jeju and Jalanche, at least through this tournament. And those three, went really well together. Olivon, obviously, until this Six Nations, would have been at 8 anyway. So not a big change, I think, him going there. But it's going to be interesting, just the balance of the back row, just because you do have him coming back in. You got Matthew coming in as well in there. Are they going to have the same balance that they had in previous games? Then you got Dupont and Jalabert. Like Dupont, rare thing where he got outplayed by his opposition 9 last week, and that generally doesn't happen to him 2 weeks in a row. So I don't think it's going to happen in this game. Jalabert, absolutely brilliant 10, but couldn't do much given the fact that they got completely outmuscled by Scotland, and when that happens, it kind of takes your halfbacks out of the game. And it was only when, like, last 15 minutes, Scotland take the foot off the gas, that we saw that French backline being able to get those scores, and scores that could be vital. Got that try bonus point and pretty much restored all of their points difference gap that they have on the other two contenders for the title as well. So, they got the, as I said, they got the losing bonus point, or sorry, not the losing bonus point, the try bonus point, but that points difference is an extra point on its own as well. So, really well done in terms of coming back into the game there. Then you got Louis Bielbieri, like, basically that guy pulls on the blue shirt in the Six Nations. You just hand him a try because he's going to get it. And be no surprise if he does it again here. The centres have, one of the areas that's really kind of been in flux for France through the tournament. You got Mo Fana and Baresi in there now. We've seen the likes of Deporter, Baubery in there as well. And we've seen a lot of changes in the centres, but just shows the depth really that France have as well. At the Sogbe, really good at the start of the tournament. Even had to fill in a full back when Jalabert pulled out late and won the games. But hasn't really had the impact. It felt like it was like a dual threat with himself and Bielbieri on the two wings. Not quite up there at the level of Bielbieri anymore, like through the term, but still absolutely class. And Ramos, a fullback, metronome off the tee, and also, hugely dangerous and a great facilitator. He's one of those players. He's kind of similar, I think, to Kinghorn for Scotland, in that he can be a threat on his own, but he can make other people threats as well. And that's a really dangerous player, because it means, the defense don't know whether they're marking him or they're marking the player coming, either side of him as well. So, if he's playing well, France, I think, are going to play well too. But, tons of quality in that team. And, you look at the bench as well. You got Mauvaka, Neti, Bamba have been, brilliant off the bench. Sometimes Bamba's not on the bench because Colombe could be on there as well. But, those guys are going to come on and deliver, I think, in the front row. Then we kind of get into a bit more of a sticky area because you got, Adadu, Guillard and Brennan. So, we've seen, other players on the bench previously coming on and having like the likes of Noki having massive impact off the bench. Gier has done that through determinative fairness to him as well. But Joshua Brennan, obviously the son of Trevor Brennan, former Ireland player, he definitely has it in terms of ability, but in a game like this where if it's tight coming off the bench, are those guys gonna get it done? There's a question mark there, but that's where kind of stars are born, or players kind of elevate themselves, is delivering in games like this, coming on, making the difference, and winning that championship potentially for your team. Saran, excellent to depth at 9. Like, you've got obviously Dupont, arguably best player in the world, certainly best 9 in the world, but the depth below him as well is just frightening. And Gaetan there as well has looked decent off the bench too. So really strong team from France. It's now about, like, I kind of think though, mentality really from these guys, not ability. The ability is definitely there. Is the mentality there? Is the only question as to whether they are going to retain their title, I think. Then if we look at the England team, so front row, Genge, George and Hayes. Second row, Itoje and Coles. Back row, Chesham, Pepper and Earl. Halfback, Spencer and Finn Smith. Left wing, Murley. Centres, Atkinson and Freeman. Right wing, Roebuck. Fullback, Elliot Daly. Then on the bench, you got Cowan Dickey, Rod Davison, Cumming and South, Underhill and Pollock. And in the backs cover Van Poortvliet and Smith. So 6-2 split for England. It's going to be very quick in terms of talking about the changes, because it's just one change for England. So that's Chesham in for the injured Tom Curry, and one positional change as well. Pepper moving to 7 to accommodate him. So no changes on the bench either. So, it's a ballsy move, honestly, from Borthwick, to take the team that first ever England team to lose to Italy and basically say to them, bar one injury replacement, go again, guys. And that can be, it can be good and bad, obviously. Obviously he's trying to show them he believes in them and that he thinks that they can produce a performance. But if they produce the performance they did against Italy, they're just going to get absolutely destroyed by this French team, because even in defeat to Scotland, where they got absolutely pumped, they still scored 40 points. So you kind of worry a little bit about England if they're not at it right from the start. They've got to be massively physical. They've got to be clean as well in terms of penalties and stuff like that, because it doesn't matter if you're going around smashing everybody if you're giving away penalties and undoing all your good work. So for me, that comes down then to leadership. And there's been a lot of question marks about the leadership of Maro Itoje. It's one of the reasons why Jamie George is starting at hooker over Cowan Dickey, because they feel like there is a lack of leadership in that team at the minute. And he saw it last week. Itoje, he's the one to slap the ball out of Fusco's hands, gave away the penalty, got a yellow card, and during the yellow card period, Italy went on to get the score that basically won the game. So, you would sort of question his leadership, just in terms of, I think he's a very inspirational player. You look at his performances and think that inspires other players, but whether he can actually, in terms of his demeanor and the way he talks to the players, because there was a bit of an argument on the field as well last week when they were deciding whether to go to the corner or kick for the post as well. Whether he has that, I think that's definitely a reason why you've got George and Genge there in the front row, as part of that leadership team to try and bring that to the team. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a change in England captain at some point during this year as well. I think, again, I think Maro Itoje as a player is an exceptional player. I just don't think he's a very good captain. And I would equate him to there was Gary Ringrose was given the joint captaincy for Leinster. I didn't think he did very well at that. And I've seen James Ryan being captain as well for Ireland and for Leinster previous as well. I don't think, kind of similar players in that they kind of do their talking with their play. And their actual talking is not that great in terms of handling referees and geeing up the team as well. And they're the kind of players you want to take away that extra pressure that's on them and just let them play their natural game and give the captaincy to someone who is more of a natural leader, the likes of a George, and go from there. I think the reason why George wasn't the captain is because there was a lot of question marks, not over his captaincy previously, but his performance at hooker, that it was felt that he wasn't England's best hooker and he was only starting because he was captain. And maybe it comes full circle now where they realize they actually need a captain who can actually captain the team, and whether that, and George, in fairness to him, has improved his form as well to merit a start there. Nobody's really questioning why is he starting over Cowan Dickey in terms of ability and performance, whereas you go back to the time when Itoje was appointed captain, there were a lot of question marks about that. So whether the captaincy goes to George or to Genge, or to maybe they decide now it's a good time to maybe look at some of the younger players and pick someone from there, we'll have to see from that. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting in terms of their leadership on the field. When it's a tight game, discipline has to be massively better than it's been previously. That back row really have to do a job there, and the fact that you got Chesham coming in rather than Curry, and then Pepper moving to 7. Obviously, the balance of your back row has changed now because Chesham is not going to be a poacher the way that that Curry was. You're going to basically be relying on Pepper to do that, and other players around the team as well. And then the fact that Chesham can kind of do the hard carries means maybe Ben Earl is freed up a little bit more to go, pop up on the wing, that kind of thing as well. So you might see that happening a little bit more than normal. And then the halfbacks, you got Spencer obviously in there at 9 because of injury. So how well is he going to do? Finn Smith, I think he's a quality young player, and this could really be the making of him at kind of international level or at test level in terms of just nailing down that 10 spot, because England, it seems every time there's some kind of issue in terms of performance, and normally performance is coming from your forwards, it's not coming from your backs. There's a reason why they say that forwards win games and backs decide by how much. But there is that kind of thing of when England aren't performing well, there's a lot of calls for, well, the next guy kind of off the rank for number 10 should get a go. So can Finn Smith nail down that 10 spot, going into the Nations Championship, new tournament coming up in over the summer. And then obviously, the centres as well, Atkinson and Freeman, how are they going to go together? They didn't look a great combination against Italy, but, nobody looked great, honestly, in an England shirt against Italy. Stats wise, they did pretty okay in terms of the team. But just in terms of fluidity, etc., maybe the fact that they've had that one run out together, and now they've got a second time. Maybe we are going to see combinations really clicking. So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously the bench are going to have to offer a hell of a lot more than they did against Italy. I think for England to win this one, it's probably going to have to be something like Pollock coming off and producing a bit of magic, maybe combining with Marcus Smith, and producing that bit of magic that actually gets the try that seals the victory for them. But yeah, they're going to have to rely on a massive uplift, I think, from their bench to win this. So on to our prediction then. It's France at home. Yes, they were poor against Scotland, but that's more to do with Scotland's performance than theirs. And you saw that, I think, in that, mini comeback that they had in the last 15 minutes. And one thing against Scotland was bounces of the ball that were going for them in almost every single instance in the first 3 rounds didn't against Scotland. And if they do against England, I think France get out to, possibly a big lead, and England maybe fight back a little bit to make it look a bit more respectable. But I think at the end of this, France are going to retain their title. I'm obviously hoping that Ireland somehow sneak the title, if not Scotland. But in terms of prediction, I think it's going to be France with a bonus point win, and that will be points. Given the points difference, that's going to be enough for them to deny whoever wins in Dublin. So I'm going for a France win.